Oh, snap! We live, Hot Breath Verse. Welcome back to Hot Breath, the show where you learn comedy from the pros. I am your host, comedian Joel Byers. Today's guest shares the spirit we do here at Hot Breath of comics helping comics, of that positive, supportive environment, crushing out the negative and competitive aspect of comedy. He's the CEO of Big Laugh Comedy. We're doing this live on our YouTube channel, so if you're not subscribed there yet, go subscribe to our YouTube channel where we do Q&As every single week. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome comedian and CEO of Big Laugh Comedy, the one and only Brandon Lewin, everyone. Give it up for Brandon.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Joel? Thank you so much for having me on. Woo, yeah.
We out here.
I am not a comedian, by the way. I did it for a year and a half, and then I called it quits.
Oh, literally, right before we went on, you're like, when I started comedy 5 years ago.
Yeah. I started doing it, and then quickly realized that just wasn't my thing. So I love comedy. I love stand-up, but the reason I actually stopped was just because I have kids and a family, and at the time I was a little bit later in life, and I also am just not built for doing the same thing over and over and over again, which is obviously a big part of comedy. And that's something I quickly realized when I first started doing it. Was like, I remember I just didn't know enough. And I was saying this before we jumped on, which kind of led us into the, oh shit. Am I allowed to swear on this, by the way?
Yeah, let her rip, fam.
All right,
Yeah.
Cool. I have a bit of a potty mouth.
But, I know I look like a Mormon, but it's all right.
I know you do. That's why I asked where you were at. I thought you were in Utah with the Pride Bar special people. But so when I first started doing it, I remember I would go to open mics, and there were people on there, and they were doing the same bits over and over and over again. And I was like, why the fuck are they doing that? And then I quickly realized what it was. They were just working out the kinks, and it's part of the process. And I just, like, my brain does not go there. Like, even when I used to teach like courses for marketers, and even when I did that, although I had to use a script, I would switch it up every so often, because repetition is just not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get the core aspect of it, and then like kind of branching off, but I don't know. So anyway, I love comedy. I love comedians, but I found my place and my kind of lane, which was comedy production, man. That's my bread and butter. I was raised in marketing and sales, and so now I just get to apply that for comedians and help them from a business perspective too, because I quickly realized that comedians are not the best business people, and
Facts.
yes, and so I would see, and marketers either. So I would see a lot of them promoting to the comedy group on Facebook about their show when it's all comedians in that group, when they really should be promoting to the people who would be coming and buying tickets and watching them. And so that's where I saw an opportunity to come in and help them and do that. And so far, so good.
Yeah, you came from, like, you used to do like corporate trainings for companies and stuff, right? You used to like do this at a high level.
Yeah, my right. So I actually I've been an entrepreneur since I came out of college, really, and I took what I call a 3-year hiatus from that, and I worked for a couple agencies. And the last agency I worked for was a digital marketing agency that specialized in both training and consulting on Google Analytics and digital advertisements. And so we had clients that were, Fortune 500 companies, from universities to franchises to Toyota. I trained the digital marketer from Interscope Records at one point. So a lot of different larger organizations that came through there, but they had two sides. They had the actual consulting business, and then they had the training business. And the training business is what I came on to do. And they were looking for what they called a unicorn, which was someone who had the understanding and know how to market something, but also had the people skills to go out and actually train and do these trainings. And so I was in charge of doing that, and we grew the business about $800,000 in the first it increased by $800,000 in the first 8 months that I was on there. And then I was out there training. So I was out like every other week, spending sometimes 4 or 5 days out on the road, just doing these trainings in front of, groups that range anywhere from 15 people to 200 people. So it was a lot of fun, man. It was one thing that there was a goal of mine to do some business traveling, which I did. I went, all over North America, including Canada, and spent some time up in Vancouver and Calgary, which Calgary is beautiful. It's also something I didn't know about it, that that's the Texas part of Canada. There's cowboys and cattle up there, and barbecue. There's a lot of
Wow.
barbecue. Yeah, I didn't know that. I walked in there. I was like, "Where the fuck am I? Am I in Texas right now? Like, am I in Houston?" Because there was like everybody was wearing cowboy hats and cowboy boots, and everything was meat and oil. But
Hilarious.
apparently, it's a big oil, I guess, territory. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting background. It was fun, but I believe everything led me to this point.
What are some, like, based on your, like, even like your marketing expertise, like what are some big tips you could have? You see comics always making mistakes, and here on Hot Breath we love helping and educating comics, but that's something even me, I'm, as a comedian 12 years in, I'm like, well, how can I market myself better? Or like, what are some kind of big takeaways or things that you see a lot of mistakes you see comics making, or just tips for us really?
So two things. I think one, you should own your own assets. And what I mean by that is, instead of relying on social media, although it is a big part of marketing, especially nowadays, and that's where all the masses are. But if you can, and I've always been, this has been my philosophy for years, probably like 10 plus years now, is that social media is it's a necessary evil. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but as we've seen, because I've seen it firsthand, I'm sure you and plenty of other people who are watching this have seen it too, is that we are essentially we're victims to social media. Whatever they wake up and decide to do, they can do, and we have no control over that. So we've seen I've seen personally get big comedians get shadow banned. Tim Dillon is no longer on Instagram because he got shadow banned, and he can't promote on there really anymore. And so, and maybe he does. I haven't really checked in a while, but the last time I heard, he was like, "I'm not fucking doing this anymore." But
Wow.
the people have gotten shadow banned, and it's really affected their ticket sales tremendously. And so it's things like that. Facebook started doing that way back in the day when Facebook first started. I remember I was on there. They would you would spend, it was so easy. You would spend time building up your business page and getting people on there. And then one day they woke up and they said, "We're changing the algorithm. Now you have to earn this." And they changed it up, and you went from being able to see all the followers that you had on there. If you spent time building up 100,000 followers on there, they said now on average 5% of your followers are going to see your post unless you pay to play or they're extremely engaged. And it's really unfortunate because people spend a lot of time building this up, and then they can do whatever they want to do, and then we have to adapt to those changes. And it's not good. So what I always recommend is two things. One, own your assets, meaning that if you're a traveling comedian, you're going out there and you're selling tickets, collect all the emails. Clubs should give you the emails. They should give you the contact information. Shouldn't be a question. Um, Third, or I should say that, I don't know if that's second or third. I don't know
Yeah,
what
you're
number I'm
good.
at this point. But you should also have a website. I think having a website is very important. You don't need the fancies of websites, but for people who are just starting off, there are templated kind of drag and drop websites available, like Squarespace. I always use Squarespace at kind of like a beginner's level one. And then if you can invest in getting a little bit more in depth, because the only problem with Squarespace is that you don't have full control of what you do with the marketing aspect. So like search engine optimization and stuff, you don't have full control over that. Where if you go to like a WordPress website, you can plug in a Yoast SEO, which is a plugin, and you can use that, and that helps tremendously. So you can be found organically. And so emails, website, and then I've actually found that text messaging right now is extremely popular. and it's also
Mm-hmm.
a very nice ticket seller. So we have grown. We have an email list of about 16,000 people in the local area from people who have bought tickets. We've collected more, but in all honesty, there's some people that unsubscribe. Plus, the way we sell tickets, we only really collect one person's email address, where sometimes they could purchase up to 4 tickets. So sometimes we're only capturing a fourth of the people that are coming through there. But we try to do other things to get people to subscribe and enter their information. But text messaging, we found, we have a 16,000 person email list, but we have a 2,000 person text messaging list. And the 2,000 person text messaging list actually buys more tickets than the email list does from a dollar
Wow.
standpoint. Yeah. So they're hot. They know what they're doing. Like, we've set it up where if we use a tool called Community. It's not an inexpensive tool, but it is a great one because you actually can use your own number. Or I shouldn't say your own number, but you can use a real number instead of like a 614 or whatever it is when you do those certain text messaging services. But what you can do is you set up a number, whatever area code you're in, you get it set it up. People can text you. You can build out a little bit of like a welcome funnel, so you can make it sound like you're talking to them directly. And then you can schedule and post things, and then also they give you analytics. So if you're a comedian, for example, and you're collecting people's text messaging, you will be able to see who's in what city. And if you want to say you got shows coming up in Chicago, you can go onto your text messaging group and start letting them know that, like, the pre-sale starting, or only a couple tickets are left, or whatever it is, or just let them know that it's on sale, and you can send it out directly to that demographic. You can also segment it by different population or different demographics, age groups, also sex, male, female, or gender, I should say. So I gotta be careful what I say
You're
there.
canceled, Brandon. It's over.
Yeah.
This was all a ruse to get you canceled.
That's all it took. Oh man.
No, you're good. Brandon's running on like very few hours of sleep right now. He's up in New York, and he jumped on here to do this with us. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, so if I'm a little like foggy headed, that's the problem here. But all good. So yeah, it's a fantastic tool, man, and I think it's extremely powerful. And if you use it correctly, it can really help you move tickets and grow community too. The other thing with it is that it shouldn't all be all about selling tickets, right? Like, it's also, you can use it for like sharing content if you got a blog, or if you're putting up like different sketches or whatever you're doing. You got a podcast, you got a live going right now. This would be a great opportunity if you had a text messaging list. Although I'd be interested to see how that would translate with like a live podcast, because I don't know how many people watch it on their phone versus watching it then like on their TV or the computer. But it could still be a good reminder just to let people know, hey, here we're going live. We got a new podcast. Go here, click here, go watch the link. So, but my guess is that most people do everything on their phones nowadays anyway. So that still would be a pretty effective tool to use.
For sure. Yeah, and Rick McCarthy said, "Am I the only one who thinks he looks like Bert's brother?" So I don't know if you've gotten that before.
Oh, that's fucking great, dude. I don't know if that's a compliment or a insult, but either way, I'll take it. I'll take it as a compliment.
We did a whole campaign during the pandemic where we called it like Bert Watch, and we like created a bunch of like memes and stuff to get Bert on the show, and I created a video, and then he actually replied to the tweet, and he said,
nice.
yeah, and then he gave me his number, and he gave me like his assistant's number or whatnot, and then that's the last we've gotten of it. and then his assistant kept like, he keeps kicking the can down the road, and I was like, all right, fine, we'll build it and they will come. It was just cool to get his attention and him see, but I'm not losing sleep over it.
No, I mean, that man is busier than all heck. I mean, he's
Yo.
got tours, and he does not stop. So
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all timing. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
But so with Big Laugh, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, and Rick said that was definitely a compliment. Okay,
I
yes,
appreciate
because
that.
Bert
Thanks,
is, if
Rick.
there's one thing Bert's known for, it's his looks. So that's definitely. But
Hold on. Let me take off my shirt too.
yeah.
The machine. No. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Rick.
Oh yeah, and this is a live Q&A, so if anybody watching live here, we appreciate y'all watching live. Please do share this link on Twitter or Facebook or Reddit, wherever you guys hang out. Please share it there. And Big O actually asked, he said, how do comedians become a part of your company? Do they have to be in the game for some time, or does it matter?
It's not necessarily you have to be in the game for a certain period of time. It's we look at a couple different factors and see what you're doing. You know, sometimes we'll start with depending on the shows, right? Like if you want to get on shows, it's one thing. We are pretty protective of stage time right now. We don't really do open mics just because where we're located, there's tons of open mics outside of what we do. Eventually we're going to have other programs as far as, you know, getting more stage time for younger, newer comedians. But, you know, there's opportunities with like podcasts. Like we just brought on a new podcast with a young comedian by the name of Jimmy Clifford. Shout out to Jimmy and his boys, him and Greg and JJ. They put together this great podcast. They've been doing awesome, just hustling. They got like 20 or 30 episodes out already.
Great.
It's very illustrative. They have a lot of great edits in it, and it does a great job. And they're natural, just kind of like goofing off. It's a little bro-ish, but it's a fantastic podcast. But he's younger. He's not. I wouldn't call him like he's not going to get up there and start hosting or featuring for any big names yet, but he does a really good job with his podcast. And I think that's one of the easiest ways for younger comedians. I mean, nowadays everybody has a podcast, but if you have a good angle, you do a good job with it. You know, like this is a great podcast. I was telling you before, is like, I wish this was around when I first started, because there's nothing like this, I think, really, that was out there. I was searching high and low for like how-tos, because that's my background, right? Like, I'm coming from a marketing aspect, and everywhere you go, it's like, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you post social media? But there was nothing like, how do you write a good joke? How do you work out your timing? There's really nothing. Or, well, at least at the time when I was doing the research, there was nothing.
Yeah. That's why this started.
And having this now, I mean, this is fantastic. Like, there's a local comedian in Austin. Well, he's from LA originally, or not originally, but from he was out at the store, and he moved during the pandemic out there. Hassan Ahmad, and great comedian, fantastic guy, like really, really good comedian. He's about to blow up. And he started doing this like clips where he would break down jokes, and just like someone like a bigger comedian. I think you kind of do that too, right?
Yeah, we recently started doing stuff like that.
Yeah, so he started doing it too, and it was, once I saw him post it, I was like, man, you guys keep doing it. And unfortunately, he didn't keep doing it. But those are one of those things where, like, breaking down jokes for people, for younger comedians, I think is a really powerful tool. That's something that, like, we wanted to do as far as creating some like sort of education, not necessarily like a paid place, but just like maybe tools, or someone that comes in and talks a little bit about the jokes. Like, I watched your clip about what was it, like 5 tips from Mark Norman, which Mark is a great dude, one of the greatest joke writers that are out there right now.
For sure.
And I was watching that clip, and those were fantastic. I mean, like the tips, I was like, man, see, maybe I would have been a comedian if I just would have had this around back when I first started. Now I'm too far down what I'm doing that I'm like, I don't really need. Like, I always think about it. I was like, maybe I should get back on stage. And some people like tease me about doing it, but I'm like, nah. But anyway, so
it goes both ways though with show production too. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like a few times I've been like, oh, maybe I should get back into show production, and then I start back in it, and I was like, yo, Who can help me with this? Like,
Yes,
I now
yes.
co-produce a show. I only do one now, and I co-produce it because I was like, yo, I'm not about this life anymore. I did one for like
No.
8 years, and then
Yeah.
I'm good on this. It's a lot of work, dude.
That's the thing, man. It's like I've talked to other comedians too. It's like it's cool to like produce one show, but to have to like do this on a consistent basis over and over again and try to do your stuff, it's just not worth it. Like comedians, this is another thing I found from like at least from the larger, more successful comedians that are out there, the pros that are going around doing the tours, they have teams behind them. They don't do everything themselves. You know, they're not
Mm-hmm.
posting social media. They're not editing their clips. They're not working out their deals. They have people doing that for them, and that allows them to do what they do best, which is write jokes and perform. And I think it's true in any kind of like profession. You know, you look at professional athletes; they're not going out there making their own deals as for their clubs. They're not going out there figuring out their own training programs. They got people who come in and do that for them.
Yeah.
And it's no different from a comedian's standpoint. I think obviously when you're younger and you're first starting off, you have to be a little bit more hands-on. But I always say is like when you can get to a point where you can find someone to help you out in any aspect of it, take advantage of it. You know, find that person. I think Jimmy's a good example too because he has his buddy Greg who's kind of like his co-host. He's not really a comedian, but he's just there and he's good to be a part of the conversation. And he's got JJ who's his producer who has just gone into learning how to cut and edit and do a really good job with it. But the three of them combined make a fantastic podcast. But I guarantee you, if Jimmy was trying to do all that by himself, it wouldn't be as successful as it is now.
For
And
sure.
so that's another kind of point. So and I don't know if I answered that person's question about how do they get involved with Big Laugh Comedy. If you have a podcast or podcast idea, that's something we do take on original content too. So if you have like skits or anything along those lines, we'll take it and help you out. If you've been performing for a little bit longer and you feel like you've gone your legs underneath you, we'd love we'll take a look at stuff. I don't do clips anymore though. People try to send me videos and I just don't do them anymore
Uh-huh.
because I've gotten fucked once, and that was the only time I needed to. That made me change that, and it's one of those things where I got a really good clip, a video from somebody. They're like, oh yeah, I do comedy all the time. I'm a writer for this and that. She sent me a clip. I watched the clip, and then I was like, oh man, she killed it. Brought her out. She was supposed to feature for the headliner at a show. Now this was before we were doing like big shows, but she came out and she bombed horribly,
Mm-hmm.
horribly. Now, I mean, understandably, not everyone has a great set every single time, but like when you're supposed to be featuring for somebody, typically, like I've seen enough people feature that even if the crowd isn't 100% in there, they know how to get them a little bit in there. I mean, that's their job.
Or at least handle it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, not crumble.
She
Yeah.
and she did not handle it very well. That
Yeah.
was that was another good story. I heard a story by Chris Stefano. I think actually he was talking with I think it was Bert or when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, but he was talking about how before he ever got up on, I think it was Letterman he was going on before Letterman got off. But he was auditioning. He wanted to get up there, and his people were like kept on coming to his shows and watching him. And he never got the call to come on the Late Show. But when he bombed in front of them, and he's like, "Oh fuck, they're not gonna want to do it." And his manager called him up and was like, "No, Chris, actually, they want you to come in." And so he asked them why, and they said because they saw him fail or bomb, but he did it professionally. He did not
Yep.
crumble. He handled it like a pro, and that's what they were looking for. And I think that's another really good tip for any sort of comedian in general is that you're going to bomb, but like you got to do it as a pro. You got to just keep powering through it and handle it and not crumble. And so now on the flip side, I've also been burned on tapes for in the reasons where like I didn't think they were funny enough, and then I saw them live and they fucking killed it. And
Uh-huh.
and I remember this. So this my buddy Tremaine Bradley, he sent me a tape when I first started producing shows, and I watched it and I was like, I sent him a response like, man, I'm like, keep trying. This is good. It's just not a good fit for me right now or for us and for the shows. And he's like, all right, cool. And I ended up co-producing a show with another comedian, and he knew Tremaine, and he put Tremaine on the show. And Tremaine went up, and for about 15 minutes, he murdered the room. I was like loud as hell, laughing, like cackling. And he got off stage, and he walked up to me, and he whispered in my ear, he goes, Brandon, he's like, I told you should have put me up.
Dang,
like, yeah.
fam.
Well, and that like the confidence, the swagger, and the fact that he did it and he walked the walk and talked the talk. I mean, that from then on, I never questioned him. And
Mm-hmm.
he's been doing great, man. Like I started putting him up when we started doing bigger shows. I started putting him up. He started featuring for Steve Byrne, and then he went on the road with him a little bit, and now he's doing some more stuff in Chicago too. So
Great.
it's stuff like that, like helping comedians push their career forward is what I love to do. I love helping them. I'm not really looking to manage people. The company Big Laugh Comedy is about here just like empowering comedians, helping them, find opportunities, connect them with other people too. I can't tell you how many times we've connected people, comedians with bigger headliners who then end up taking them out on the road or, giving them some spots here and there. And that's what it's all about, man. I mean, because at the end of the day, like we're all in this together, and unfortunately sometimes in the community and however you want to describe it, like in the scenes, like people can be cutthroat and kind of, I feel it too, where like sometimes people try to come after us for, I don't know, for no reason really, in all honesty. But I think that's just in life in general. When someone sees somebody on the top or they're doing something well or positive, there's those naysayers, those haters that kind of come out and try to knock you down. So it's just nature. It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I think that's what attracted me to Big Laugh is like we just share that spirit of just supporting comics, being positive, creating a safe space, like really, and just trying to give comics opportunities wherever we can. And with like Big Laugh, it maybe give us because what I reached out to you to come on here is because you guys are currently doing like a fundraiser, but or for lack of a better term, you can give us more specificity on it. But it was really intriguing and inspiring. So maybe give us a little context for how Big Laugh started and where it's going.
Sure. Yeah. So I started doing comedy about 6 years ago, and then and so when I started doing it, I wanted to get in front of like a real audience. And with my background of being an entrepreneur and marketing and sales, and also being extremely impatient, I was like, fuck it, I need to get in front of it. I'm like, I got to see if my material is actually good or not. And plus, I had a bunch of friends who wanted to see it. So I started producing shows mostly to give myself more time and a real audience. But the first show that I booked, it was like at a brewery up where I live, which is like 30 minutes north of Austin. And I got 100 people to come out and pay on average $17 per ticket. And only the cool thing was that only 25% of those people were like friends that I knew. Everyone
Great.
else came from advertisements and marketing that we did. And but with that money, I was able to pay comedians pretty well. We had some headliners, local headliners, but headliners nonetheless that came out and did the show. So we paid them. We paid all the other comedians, and um, that was my first taste in doing the comedy production. And then I took a little bit of a hiatus and got back into it again, but I stopped doing the comedy side of it. And I was like, man, you know what? Because I got more nervous about doing the comedy side than I did about just actually producing the show and how well it would turn out. So I found my lane and I found my passion for that. The other thing is like when I paid comedians, I remember this girl that was on there for the first show, she got paid $35 for doing like 5 or 10 minutes. I forgot what it was. She was great. I've seen her be on other shows, but she's like, Brandon, this is the first time I ever got paid for being on the show. I was like, you kidding me, right? I'm like, you've been on a number of shows in the area and you never got paid. She's like, no. She's like, I get drink tickets and maybe some chicken
Yep.
wings. She's like, but that's about it. I was
Yep.
like, man, I'm like, that's kind of fucked up. And that was another reason why I want to do what I do, because get comedians that pay, get paid. And we still do this to this day, where like I always say, I make a lot of people a lot of money, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not the one who's coming home and bankrolling on it. It's other people that are making most of the money, and that's okay, because I know in the long run that's going to all pay off. And with where we're going, there's going to come a time where, that all that stuff's going to add up, and it's just going to it's positive. When you do this, it's like it's adding like social currency. The universe, I believe the universe, you do good things, the universe pays you back. Might not be directly from that person, but it's going to come back from some way, shape, or form. And so anyway, the story was that I got back into production, started doing it. I actually set a goal for myself to do it full time in 2020. And I had my first big show lined up with Dean Del Rey on March 7th, 2020 in Austin, Texas, down on 6th Street. And sure enough, that was a week before the world shut down. So the turnout from the show was not very good. It was decent. Dean did a great job. Everyone that came had a fantastic. It was just a weird time. Like, newspapers were reading. I remember even Dean. I talked to Dean because he's coming back, kind of full circle. He's coming back to Austin. We're doing another show with him,
Awesome.
and he's like, dude, I'll never forget that show. I'm like, me either, bro. I'm like that. First, it was like my first kind of jump into doing this full time. Second, it was during the weirdest time in my life, in all honesty. And so, but during the pandemic, we started doing, things shut down and we weren't able to do live shows anymore. But I was like, I still had the vision, the passion, and wanting to do this full time. So I shut down my marketing business. I had an agency that I was running for about 5 years, and there wasn't much going on as far as marketing during the pandemic anyways. So I was like, I'm going to take the money I've saved and some of the money I was able to accumulate, and I'm going to invest it into doing this stuff online. And so we started producing shows, online shows, not stand-up shows, but like comedy, kind of like we had a variety show. We had a meme kind of based show. We had a podcast type style stuff. So we tried everything. At one point we had about 10 shows running at during the week, and all online, no like Zoom stand up. And it was an outlet for comedians to be able to do their comedy, have fun, interact with other comedians, very similar to what you're doing here with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it was another outlet for other people to get, good content, get their minds off the bullshit. But when things started opening up, we started doing live shows, and that all started taking off. We found a really good partnership with Vulcan in Austin, Texas. And then the next thing you know is like I made some strategic moves that all worked out in our favor, which then landed us some really big shows and worked with some really big names. And now we're here. We're doing, and we started there doing, we were given 1 day per week to do comedy shows. And within about, I think it was like February, March, at that point of March 2021, we were doing shows almost 7 days a week. And killing it, selling it out. We basically took Vulcan and have turned it into a comedy club. And now we have some of the biggest names that come through there. We do headliners, we have showcases. People know it. Rogan talks about it all the time on his podcast.
Yeah.
So it's been a really fun experience seeing all that and how it's transformed. Now where we're going is we want to. I told you this a little bit off the podcast, but what I didn't know when we started doing this is how impactful comedy really is in people's lives. I mean, I knew that laughter can make a difference, and I knew the saying that laughter is a medicine, but I didn't really know how much. And after doing some research, it's like it truly is a medicine. I mean, not just from research, but from like firsthand experience. I know if I'm having a shitty day, I go in to the comedy club, I sit down there, I watch a show, I leave, I feel a million times better.
Yep.
I've gotten emails from people who have had a really hard time. And I had one person tell me that, if he didn't wake up the next day, he didn't believe anyone would care. And he went to a comedy show, laughed for 2 hours, came back, changed his life, turned it into 180. Now he's doing comedy himself too. And so
Wow.
he found a passion. And we hear people talk about how they met at a comedy show, or they went there for their anniversary. There's everything from the sad parts of life that comedy can help, but also like how it enhances the happy parts of your life too. I've seen families bond, bringing kids to see their favorite comedians. We just had Vic DeBeppo. I can't pronounce his last name, but Vic came by and he was talking with this autistic kid who was about 18 years old, and the mom reached out to us and asked if it was okay to come in there. We don't normally allow 18 plus. It's typically the venue is more like 21, but we made an exception. And so he came in and got to meet him, and it changed his life. Like, she sent us an email. She's like, you know what? That was the most amazing thing in the world. They got to take a picture. Like, an autistic kid, I can't imagine being autistic and going through that stuff, but being able to find something that you love, finding someone that makes you laugh, that changes people's life, and that's the thing, is like, this is where we're going. Like, I see how much it impacts people, that I'm like, what if this world just laughed more? If we laughed more, what could we do? Laughter is proven to create more positivity and a positive mindset. With positive mindset creates more productivity, better relationships. We all could use that a lot more. We make better decisions when we're more positive. And so with all that said, imagine a world where people were more positive, laughed more, what this could be. Because I think we used to be that way. And then we started getting so indulged with, social media and online, and all that stuff is good, but it really does mess with your fucking head. And so we've gotten to the point where, people, mental health is at a crisis, and it's at a height of where it's a problem. So Big Laugh Comedy is really about making the world laugh in order to, and also by empowering comedians. So I always look at it, we have two audiences. We have comedy fans and we have comedians. Both of those are our customers. With that said, yeah, like,
Big O said comics, we were just like weed.
I love how these are popping through. But like, our goal is to make the world laugh, and by doing that, we want to help further people's careers. I heard a story, and Rogan talked about this. I think it was on the Flagrant 2 podcast, or the Flagrant. Right, it's not Flagrant 2 anymore, but he was talking about how he started, when he started doing open mics. He knew this woman, and I think he was dating her at the time too. And she was fucking hilarious. He was like, she was funnier than me. And then, but she never made it and never got through it. And he's like, I don't know what happened. He's like, I stopped, staying in touch with her.
Oh, Brandon froze. Did he freeze for everyone? Or was that just me? Brandon! He'll be back. We'll give him a minute to reset. That is the perfect freeze frame of his face, though. Oh. Everyone, says Ricky. Okay, cool. Ah! Hilarious. Big facts, Big O. Frozen out here. Everyone. Yeah, I agree, Jeanette. Jeanette said, comedy is life-changing. I watch comedy every day. Sometimes I watch my favorite stand-up over and over. I love clean comedy, too. Nice. I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. My Q&A is too cool, said Ryan. How funny. Nice. Yeah, and I appreciate y'all's questions. We'll get to as many as we can, but I did want to get to Brandon's, like, the fundraiser they're doing and kind of the vision for that, because I think it's super interesting and unique that I think we can all learn from, just as comedians in general. But I did see DC had a question about storytelling, so I will I could do a quick answer on that one, because I want to keep Brandon's questions more towards like the business and production and things like that. So if we don't get to your question, we will for sure. There he is.
Man, sorry. This is a hotel. It's McDonald's internet. Sorry.
No, you're good. No, you're good. No worries. Ryan said this Q&A is too cool, and that's why you froze.
Awesome. Well, I don't know. I know I got cut off in the middle of the story, but I was just mentioning how Rogan was talking about this woman at the open mics, and she was funny as hell. And he's like, imagine what she could have been doing. Like, who knows? You know, back then it was a different era, a different day and age, dog eat dog world, and I was like, you know, I thought about it. I was like, that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing, because you know, what if we could empower people even at a, you know, like Jimmy is a perfect example. Again, not quite there, but as far as like being up ready for hosting or feature, and maybe he is, and he's getting close, but the fact of the matter is that we're giving him an outlet with the podcast to do something and grow. And then at the same time, he comes to the club, he hangs out, he watches the comedians, he gets to go up, do his thing. He's learning through that process. But then, you know, the other thing is we're helping them from the business perspective, how to monetize their channels. If they're getting audiences and they're growing and they got a good product and people are enjoying it, how do you make some money off of it? How do you monetize it? And so and imagine like if that girl who was doing comedy back then was given more opportunities, was also given an outlet to be able to make some money while doing something that she loves to do and nurture that process. Imagine where she would be at this, you know, now. And so that's the thing, is like, we want to help all comedians grow and empower them and be an advocate for them. And that's really what it comes down to. Then, and in the flip side, you know, more people get to see really good comedians. They also get to meet new ones. Like, one of my favorite things to do is not just the large showcases, but like bringing in like lower name comedians, maybe comedians that are just not as well known, but they're really funny, bringing them to the club, having them play, and then people walking out and be like, I've never heard of this person, but I'm a huge fan. And I can't tell you how many times that happens, and it's fantastic. It's so great, like helping them build up their fan base. Like, we've done it now with a few comedians, like Paul Verzi is a great example.
Oh yeah, we just had him on the show. Yeah,
Paul's great. He just dropped his new special on Netflix. If you guys haven't watched it, is fantastic.
Killer.
Really one of the best podcasts or specials I've seen in a long time. And there's been a lot of great ones coming out, so that's like saying something. But Paul has a great story. I got put in touch with him through Emilio, who owns the New York Comedy Club, or one of the owners of the New York Comedy Club here in New York. And he's a great guy too. Big advocate in the comedy scene. Huge player, helps a lot of people. He shares the same kind of mentality. That's why we click when we're like friends. But he put me in touch with Paul about a year and a half ago when we first started. We put a show together. We booked it out. Paul told me all about himself. Didn't have the biggest following in the world, but really, really funny dude. Came out. He sold 400 tickets, and I was like, "Hey, let's do it again." We put another date on the books for a year later. He thought at the time that his special was going to drop then, so it was going to help with ticket sales. But we still end up selling, I think, a little over 500, maybe close to like 550 in tickets.
Wow.
So he did go do an increase from what he was from the first time to the second time.
Wow.
And then now, you know, hopefully he's not going to get too big from this Netflix that he won't forget the little people, aka
the little people doing shows with like Joe Rogan, you mean? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. You know, but still, like,
you know, he straight flexed, you know, a little something, just a little sauce on him.
But you know, he and so I just hope he comes back, because then we can do another show, and that's threw me off. But he's and people like that, and then like Eric Newman's another guy. Ali Makovsky is one of my favorite comedians. I remember listening to Ali when I first started doing comedy. I started listening to Kill Tony on the regular, and she was one of my favorites. Like her jokes and her voice and her delivery, everything was just like amazing. And I've gotten to work with her a couple times, and she's another one. Like, my favorite thing is that we booked her. She came out. We booked Craig Connett to come out. He was our fourth show when we started doing shows during the pandemic down here in Austin. The fourth show was Craig Connett. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to bring Ali Makovsky to feature for me. She's going to do like 20 minutes." I was like, "Perfect." I'm like, "This is great." And then I ended up talking to Allie's agent and booking her like a month later. So we got to use that as kind of a springboard for her to come back. But she came up, she killed, she was fantastic. Then fast forward, she comes back a month later, she sells out a single show. And then she gets out there and the crowd is going crazy. Like they're like, welcome Allie Makovsky to the stage. And everyone's like, "Rah!"
Wow.
And she got off and she was glowing. She's like, Brandon, she's like, that was incredible. She's like, she's like, oh my God. And she like was like a loss for words. And it was just great to see her. She came back and did another show with us. And she's like, every time she's like, I don't know what it is about this stage and what about your shows in Austin. She's like, but I always have my best sets when I do this. And she's just like, and she's like, she's very grateful, but she's blown up and like a guy like Eric Newman is another guy who we've got to work with. We did a little Texas tour with him. He wasn't selling, like he sold 130 tickets when he did it with us in Vulcan, but he did a weekend show in Fort Worth, and we helped with that. And he sold out 2 shows. Now there were 70 tickets per show. It was a little bit smaller of a stage, but he still sold out 2. And now we're going to bring him back for a full weekend come here in 2023
Wow.
to do a full weekend in Austin. And he's blown up too. It's great to be a part of this and see that and work with people who are lower levels. Like we worked a couple shows now with Chris DiStefano too. Great guy, fantastic comedian. I've been a huge fan for a long time. And I reached out to him via Instagram, like DM, beginning when we started first doing shows. And I took screenshots of this too, just because like for memory purposes.
Yeah.
But like we started talking in December 2020, and we were like, him and I worked out a deal right there on Instagram about him coming down to Austin. Now he started getting busy and blowing up and didn't work out. But January of this year, we finally got a show to do with him, and he sold out. And I looked at the numbers that we did. He was like, yeah, I think I'll be able to sell this out and do these numbers. I think we tripled the numbers that we thought we
my
could do.
gosh.
Yeah.
I love hearing that.
It was crazy, dude. It's just crazy to see how like a year and a half can change so much. And then he came back and did another show with us, sold that out too. But he's great, man. He told me, he's like, I love working with you. And that's the thing, what we try to do too, is set that tone and be comedian friendly, like take care of them, not be an asshole, help them out, like whatever they need. I always tell them, this is your show. Whatever you need from us, you just let us know. And I think taking that approach of putting the comedian first also kind of sets the tone and changes, like, and unfortunately, like I've heard stories is like not every club and place and venues like that.
No, most clubs, I won't say most, but a lot of clubs do just kind of like sequester you. So like stay in the corner until it's your turn. Like it's not the most that's why it's inspiring people like you, like producing opportunities for comedians, but also treating comedians, like they would like to be treated. Yeah, that old way and that old mindset around comedy clubs, I'm hoping that's starting to fade out, because it ain't pretty a lot of the places.
It is, and you're right that like you nailed it in the head. It's the old school kind of mentality, and that truly is like what motivates me and inspires me and inspires us as a company, because it's not just me. I have a team behind us. Like I said, like any good professional understands that they can't do this by themselves. I wouldn't be able to grow and get us to where we are if it wasn't for a team of people. And so shout out to everybody at Big Laugh Comedy, everybody behind the scenes, even the team over at Vulcan. They've done a fantastic job, and we work together to really put their needs first. And that's why I want to grow Big Laugh Comedy. That's why we started this equity crowdsourcing campaign. So it's not a donation base. It's not Kickstarter. It's not a GoFundMe kind of campaign. It is legitimately run through the SEC. I had to spend about 6 to 8 months. I think it was closer to 8 months. Spent tens of thousands of dollars to get everything in line. Had to go through legal teams and financial reviews, and had to get things passed through to go through the SEC. And we're literally raising funds through selling equity. People are getting to own parts of Big Laugh Comedy. They get to be a part of the owner, and reason is that I always had a dream of putting the business as like a build it a brand of for people by the people,
I love that.
because like I always wanted comedians to be part owners, whether they bought into it or we gave them equity in some capacity. That, like, even before we went down this road, that was a conversation that I've had behind closed doors for a very long time. And I believe that when you have skin in the game too, like, one of the things we asked ourselves was that we had some like really big advocates for who we are. People go out and they talk about us and love us and all that stuff, but I was like, how do we convert more average Joe fans into more advocates? And I was like, well, what if they had some skin in the game? And so we offer them an opportunity, in exchange for for their money, where they're going to invest. And like I said, we made a lot of people a lot of money, so why stop now? And that's the same concept. Have them be a part of it, have them become advocates, have them have a voice and feedback in what we're doing. At the same time, they'll make money from it too. And so when we all benefit, when we make money, everyone else benefits too. And so that's really what it comes down to. It's regulated by the government. It was equity crowdsourcing. For a lot of people who don't know, it is through the Jobs Act that was created back in 2016, which allowed more small businesses to get funding. Because really the only way before that was like VC money or angel investors or family and friends, and all those outlets are really hard to do. So with creating the Jobs Act, they created the equity crowdfunding platforms. Start Engine is one of them. It's one of the larger ones,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the one we decided to go with. But we did a lot of research into seeing what we did, and I even had people, and I still do. I have people who want to individually invest, and which is fine. We take that money, but this was something that I still wanted to go down this road because I wanted to create a movement. I wanted people to be a part of it. I mean, there's a lot of places that cannot do this because they've either are established and they're making too much money, and so they're like, why would I sell part of my business? But we're in a perfect position where we're young enough, we have a proven model, and we have big plans and what we want to do and how we want to change the world. And I know it sounds corny and cliche, but it's true. And how we want to help the world, people, and comedians. And so, you can invest for as little as $150. That's
So,
all you have to put into it.
so
Now we've
what
had
does
people.
that look like? Like, if let's say I go and invest $150, like
Mhm.
what now?
So what happens is that the money gets donated. We have a campaign that runs about three to 6 months, depending. It could be even sooner if we hit our goal. Our goal right now is $1.07 million. And then with that funds, we have what we're actually going to do is start to invest, and we already done that. We've been investing in comedians in the business for since we started, but we're gonna build out a podcast network. We're going to create opportunities for comedians. Like I said, we're gonna actually open up our own venues too. We have a couple of
Mm.
places that we already have in mind, and leases that we're ready to go and get ready and rock and roll, and then expand from there. And then we actually, I know this is not the most popular thing in the world right now, but NFTs is another avenue that we want to take comedy down. And it's not just because like it's not JPEG images. Everyone kind of like jokes around about that shit, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of there, even people with photography can sell it as NFTs, and there's a lot of things that comedians can do with these NFTs, even with like selling tickets and having those kind of set up. So we're pushing innovation, technology, also just creating an experience, and the goal is to um, create an avenue where it's a full experience, whether you're in person or you're online. So you can go to a venue, have the best time, laugh your ass off, come back home. The next day you can wake up and be like, hey, go check out this clip from Big Laugh Comedy. This is the guy that we just saw live in person, or watch this sketch that they just did. It's fucking hilarious. It's really like creating an ecosystem where it encompasses all aspects, and the online offline relationship, intertwining and putting it together and mixing it together, plus adding in technology and innovation. And this is something that hasn't really been done in comedy, hasn't really been done in general. Some people are starting to do this a little bit, but it's really pushing the envelope, and it's not necessarily rocket science, but it's just taking a bunch of little different industries and mixing it into one and putting it all under one brand, and then allowing people to create opportunities for themselves.
I love that. Yeah, people in the comments are saying that sounds awesome. Jeanette said she will be investing.
Oh,
And
thank you.
Big O said the money gets invested back into comedians. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, that
really
sounds
what it comes
great.
down to, I mean, it's like we have a temporary studio right now, but we have a studio that we're about to start launching some podcasts. The Jim Clifford Show is going to be recorded there. We're talking to some other comedians. I just blasted out on our Instagram today that we're looking for comedians who have podcasting ideas. We do actually we have a written side too. We have a publication side where we have an editor in chief, and we have news, and then we have satirical stuff on there too. But it's also news and like reviewing specials, talking about what's going on in the local communities, what's going on in comedy in general. Just like everything comedy, like everything related to comedy we are going to be covering, and that's because I love it and I think everybody should. And there's nothing that really covers comedy like Jim Jeffries right after the Oscars, it wasn't even regarding to the slap heard around the world. It was in regards to like the Oscars don't even nominate like comedy specials or comedians in general. And like comedians, I think like comedy as an art is one of the hardest art forms there is, because like as a painter, you could paint something, look at it, say it looks like shit, throw it out. You know, and you don't have to worry about somebody rejecting you. As an actor, you could sit there and do 250 takes until you get that one that goes up on the screen. But anyone who's not watching, who's not part of the process, won't know that you did that many fucking takes and you sucked that bad that you had to do it 250 times. But as a comedian, you do that in real time with real rejection, and it is not easy. And so like that needs more recognition. That's how I see it. It needs more recognition and needs more respect out there. So we got plans to like do our own awards and have a yearly thing where we nominate people for podcasts and movies and sketches. And that's another thing we want to get into is like video content, but bigger like movies too, because I think Hollywood, first of all, the entertainment industry puts drama as the number one genre because it sells more around the world, because they say drama and action sell internationally where comedy doesn't. And I think that's bullshit. There's been proven models that it translates no matter where you go. I've seen more and more comedians now that are traveling overseas and it's working, and it works and people are laughing. Doesn't matter what the humor is, they still get it. They actually say that some of the jokes work better overseas than they do here in America. And so it's like, why not do that? And the entertainment industry too is like they've gotten so the movie studios are so now indulged in like nostalgia and things that were blockbusters, and they're so worried about that they're not really willing to take risk on original content. And there's so much original content out there. I think everybody has a script, right? Everyone's got a fucking screenplay they've written.
Yeah.
I know that half the people I talk to always say, yeah, I got something, I wrote something, and so it's like, why not take a chance on some of this stuff? I mean, it can't be like we're going to produce everything, but it's like, if you have an idea and it's actually good, let's take a chance on it and see how it rolls with the dice. And if it's good and it's done well, it'll do well. I mean, but so that's the thing, is we want to kind of take the risk and take those risks, because I'm kind of fearless at this point. It's like we have nothing to lose, and let's just go see what happens.
Where can people donate?
If you
not even donate. Yeah, I don't want to come off like it is like a Kickstarter. I mean, it's literally like you said. It's like equity. I didn't know the right way to like frame it.
I like to. Yeah, I've been having kind of a hard time doing that too, but it's invest, right? I think.
Yeah.
If you want to invest in comedy, you want to invest in Big Laugh Comedy, you can go directly to our website, which is blcomedy.com/invest. You can also go directly to the source, which is startengine.com/ Big Laugh Comedy. So
Big Laugh Comedy.
Yep.
startengine.com/.
/Big
Big Laugh
Laugh
Comedy.
Comedy.
Nice.
That's
Okay, cool. Yeah, and you guys have already raised $45,000,
$45,000.
and it's a
Yeah. So
$25 million valuation.
Yeah.
What? Just
Yeah,
based on the
so-
vision and what you guys want to do?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question because a lot of people actually ask that. And I had somebody today who just asked that. So the valuations are really hard to come across. I know when they were like, "Here, give us a valuation." I was like, I don't know how to fucking start with this. And the best way they describe it is you take in a couple different factors. One, our current numbers. Two, some things we don't make all the profits because we are essentially the production company and the venue itself. Most of the times we've done it with multiple venues. Venues typically keep 100% of the food and liquor, and so but we do know what they are making from the food and liquor, and then if we are running our own full-time venues, that's the money that we know will accumulate, and they've made some pretty good money on our events. And
For
so
sure.
It's that factor. It's what we're making. It's also projections that I've worked with CPAs based on real life data, also markets and competitors too. So the comedy club industry, I think of in 2021 was like it was valued at $330 million. And then we're going to be getting into podcasting, which there's advertising sponsorships and opportunities in that, which it's a $94 billion industry right now for podcasting. And actually, I don't know if you knew this, but comedy is the number one genre in podcasting. It surpassed news. It's like 21% of people who listen to podcasts listen to comedy podcasts. So if you equate that with the billions of dollars in there, you just do 21% of the $94 billion market, and you'll see how much comedy makes. And then also with some of the other channels that we're going to and the other revenue streams. So there's real money to be made in what we're doing. We're also not relying on just ticket sales and food and liquor, which is, is my mind a genius way of going about it, because in this day and age, I think one thing, if we learn anything from the pandemic, is that when you rely on one source of income, you're fucked. You really
Amen
are.
to that. Amen to that. Yep. No mas.
Yeah. So, I mean, even the smartest investors in the world, Warren Buffett, has always said, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yep. Got to diversify. Yep.
So that's what it is, man. So that's the valuation. That's where that came from.
Yeah. And I just put a link to it in the live chat, and I will put a link to it in the show notes of this podcast as well. And, oh yeah, Ryan Skrilla, he has a podcast where he interviews comedians while they're out at restaurants, and he keeps saying, cough, cough, I know a guy with a good interview show. I guess he's pitching his podcast. Is there a place right now for people to pitch ideas?
Yeah, you can, two things. You can either just DM us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is @Big Laugh Comedy, or you could send a direct email to info@blcomedy.com.
info@blcomedy.com.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I mean, Brandon, I feel like there's so much just synergy here, and honestly, like anything we can do to help or collaborate on, I think there's a lot of similar vision and just intention and spirit around what we're both trying to do here. So really, yeah, anything we can do together, I think it only just helps. So
yeah, man, I agree. I 100% agree. I think your podcast is fantastic. I'll say it again. I think this is definitely something that a lot of people could use, and I'm glad you're getting the recognition that you're getting at this point. But anything you need from me, you let me know, brother. Like, I appreciate you putting me on here, and thank everybody for coming on and listening and spending the time with us. I'm very grateful for this. I don't take anything for granted, and you are the man, dude. So appreciate you.
Bow.
Just bound. Boom.
And thank you, everyone, for hanging out on this live chat. We'll let Brandon get back to his trip here in New York, but we appreciate everyone for hanging out with us. And
go see some comedy tonight. Woo woo.
Go get them. Thank you, Hop Breath Verse.
Yeah, New York's probably one of the best places for comedy. If you guys have not been to New York City and seen comedy, you are missing out.
100%. Yeah, I'm going up there tomorrow for the Louis C.K. movie premiere.
Oh, sweet.
They're doing it at the Beacon, so I'm making a trip up just for the day. I'll come back Friday morning, but I'm going up tomorrow to go to that.
Oh, hit me up. I'll be here tomorrow. Maybe we can meet up in person. I'm gonna be with the family, but maybe.
Yeah, we're doing a Hot Breath hangout tomorrow for lunch. We're all gonna meet up, I think, at Joe DeRosa's sandwich place.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'll send you my email or my number, not my email. What the fuck? My number.
Yeah.
Text me and like let me know where it's at, and I'll try to stop by.
Sounds fun. Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out, Hot Breath the Verse. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel to participate in these weekly Q&As we do, and we will see y'all next week.
Cool.
Bye, y'all.